never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah, wait.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Today is another one of those days where I'm going to be jumping around and talking about all sorts of things, not just one topic. I do have a question about the spring football games. I know there's been a few played already, but there are a ton on the docket for this weekend. So I've got a question about spring games that I'll get to coming up here in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the Atlanta Braves for a minute. They finished off a sweep of the Reds last night. A.J. Minter got his second save of the season. Of course, he's just the fill-in closer until they get Raisel Iglesias back, who has been on the injured list all season so far with inflammation in his shoulder. But he is now throwing, so maybe he'll be back in the next couple of weeks. Spencer Strider pitched okay last night. Struck out 9 in 5 innings, but he gave up 3 runs, which is not that good. It's not terrible, but it's not good. Kyle Wright came back Tuesday night, and he was awful. He went 3 innings, gave up 4 hits, 4 runs, struck out 4, and walked 4. In an ideal world, he wouldn't have came back this early. He would have made at least one more start for Gwinnett, but the Braves tried Dylan Dodd and Jared Schuster, and both guys showed that they are not quite ready. And then it was announced earlier in the week that Ian Anderson is going to have Tommy John surgery. So, of course, he'll be out for the rest of the year. So the Braves right now are kind of low on starting pitchers. So they really didn't have much of a choice but to go ahead and bring Kyle Wright back a little bit early. But I'm not too concerned about it right now, because even though he only went 3 and struck out 4 and walked 4 and gave up 4 hits and 4 runs, the velocity was there. So I think it's just a matter of him having to get back into the groove of things after being injured. But of course, all the negative people are going to freak out and say we're seeing the old Kyle Wright, because if you recall, up until last year when he won 21 games, Kyle Wright was just an average pitcher. And then all of a sudden last year, he was 21-5, I think, record-wise, but the Braves were 24-6 overall in games he started. So the Braves played really good when he pitched. So let's just hope it was just a case of him not quite being ready and not the old Kyle Wright returning. But you have to wonder how much longer the Braves are going to play Marcell Ozuna. Of course, they're off today, so he cannot be in the lineup tonight because there's no game. Tonight is the first off day since the Friday after the opening game of the season. But we're 13 games into the season, the Braves overall are sitting at 9-4. They've won 3 of the 4 series they've played this year. They lost the series over the weekend to the Padres, but no big deal. As long as the baseball season is, you're not going to win every single series. At least they lost 3 of the 4 and didn't get swept. The better news is they play the Padres again coming up here very, very soon, and then they'll be done with the Padres for the year because the Padres are very, very good. But anyway, back to Marcell Ozuna. You're 13 games into the season, and Marcell Ozuna's hitting like .90 or .85, which is absolutely terrible. He only has 3 hits on the season, and 2 of them are home runs. He still has that power, so you know if Marcell Ozuna makes contact, it has a pretty good shot at going over the wall. But he's been terrible. Eddie Rosario had 2 hits last night, and I believe he had 2 hits on Tuesday night. So maybe Eddie Rosario is going to become the everyday left fielder. And of course, when Michael Harris Jr. comes back from injury, he'll be your center fielder. And obviously, Ronald Acuna Jr. is your right fielder. Maybe they decide to keep Hilliard, who is now playing in the place of Harris, and either just cut Ozuna or try to trade him. But the amount of money he makes, and he's so bad, nobody's going to want him. But you can't continue to send that guy out there night after night as your DH, knowing he's going to go 0 for 3, 0 for 4, 0 for 5. But he is absolutely terrible. But the Braves are off to a good start on the year. As I said, they are off tonight. Back in action coming up tomorrow night. Now let's talk some NASCAR for a couple of minutes before I get to my question about the spring games. Over the weekend in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, Joey Logano wins the race, followed by Ty Majeski, William Byron, Matt Crafton, Grant Enfinger, Jake Garcia, Chase Briscoe, Tanner Gray, Caden Honeycutt, and rounding out the top 10 was Matt DiBenedetto. Truck Series back in action tomorrow night at 7:30. It's the Long John Silver's 200, and they are at Martinsville. And it's so funny to see night racing at Martinsville because up until a couple of years ago, the Martinsville racetrack had no lights. So every single race had to be held in the daytime because once the sun went down, you couldn't see a darn thing. They finally decided to put some lights around the racetrack. Xfinity Series was off last weekend. They're back in action this weekend, Saturday night. Xfinity Series racing. It's the Call 811.com before you dig 250 from Martinsville as well. And then the Cup Series last weekend, Christopher Bell came home with the win, followed by Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Chase Briscoe rounding out the top 5. 6 through 10 was Justin Haley, Martin Truex Jr., Todd Gilliland, Kevin Harvick, and Ty Gibbs. And this Sunday at 3 o'clock on Fox Sports 1 from Martinsville, it's the NOCO 400. A couple of big things in the NASCAR world. They announced yesterday that Chase Elliott returns to the track this weekend. Of course, I despise Chase Elliott, so I hate hearing that, but of course, I'll still watch the races. And also, this past Monday, a NASCAR Cup Series driver named Cody Ware was arrested, and he drives for a low-budget, family-owned team. He's never going to win a race. He's terrible. But I will say, I hate to see this happen, but NASCAR is not like the NFL or the NBA. If somebody in the football world or the basketball world gets arrested for domestic violence, they'll pay some cheap fine and they'll claim they're going to family counseling and they'll miss maybe one game. Don't be surprised if you don't see Cody Ware back in NASCAR for at least a year or two, because NASCAR takes this stuff very, very seriously, which all sports should do. But on to my big question, and I'm just wondering this because even though there's been a few spring games played so far, the majority of them are this weekend. If you watch them and you enjoy watching them, if you look on your TV guide from whatever TV outlet you have, there are spring games on pretty much all day long, Saturday. But my question is, what are your thoughts on spring games? Do you care about them or do you not? I would say, me personally, on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm probably about a 2. I'm not going to say I don't care at all, because I do, but I don't go to them. I went to one Clemson spring game probably 2005, 2006, something like that, just to say that I did it, but I'll never go again. It's just not something I'm going to do. I don't see a point in it. But not only that, you see a lot of teams now that are showing to them the spring games aren't important. Tennessee canceled their spring game last year. I believe Alabama canceled their spring game last year. We've seen Texas A&M cancel their spring game. And then Missouri last year didn't cancel theirs, but they moved it indoors, so there was no fans allowed. So they might as well have canceled it. They could have went inside and set Indian style for 2 hours and said woosah, and we'd never know the difference. So they might as well just have canceled it. But to me, if you've got teams canceling their spring game, then that's the coaches and the university showing that they don't care about the spring game. So if they don't care, why should I care? But typically, if the Clemson spring game comes on TV, I'll watch it just because it's Clemson. But generally, I'll watch the first quarter, maybe till halftime, and after that, I'm done, because it's basically a glorified scrimmage. So I'm not going to say I don't care at all, but I don't get excited about it. I don't attend the game, and I don't sit back and watch the entire game. But everybody knows that I enjoy sports, and I usually listen to some type of sports all day long, whether I'm at home, at work, in the car, or whatever. It might be a local radio show, it might be a national radio show, it might be podcast, but I listen to some kind of sports pretty much all day long. And yesterday, there was a 40-year-old guy and a 30-year-old guy asked a 20-something-year-old guy how much he cared about the spring game, and he said, an absolute 0. If I text my buddies right now and ask them when our team's spring game was, they wouldn't know. So apparently it's the younger generation that has completely stopped caring about the spring games, which has made the universities not care anymore. But they're okay for some teams. Some teams actually treat it like an actual game. But a lot of schools do it to where one color is offense and one color is defense, and the offense has the ball the entire game. Some schools do it where you have the first string offense facing the third string defense, which is just completely stupid in my opinion as well. I believe if they're going to keep doing it, since we see less and less fans caring about it, they need to make it to where it's a game, not between yourselves, but let's say the Florida Gators play Florida A&M. Georgia Tech plays Mercer. Georgia plays Georgia State. Clemson plays Furman. South Carolina plays Wofford. That way, you're playing a game against a local team, so you're not playing against yourselves. And the fans might come out. But if fans just don't care, they're not going to care because you're playing yourself. They're going to want to see something. And for most teams, the coaches know who's going to start most positions. So a lot of times you won't even see those guys play much, if at all, in the spring game. It's mainly a chance for the backup guys to try to get a starting spot. Or like for Clemson right now, they have no kicker. So they're going to have 3 or 4 guys in their spring game coming up on Saturday try to compete to become the kicker because we don't have a starting kicker. But for the most part, the guys that are going to start either won't play at all or won't play much. So if you watch the game, it's a glorified scrimmage with a bunch of backups. So it's hard to actually care about it. But I do care some because it's football. But I watch first quarter, maybe a half. But the fans that do watch it put way too much stock into it. If their offensive line struggles, they wake up Sunday morning saying, man, our offensive line's going to be trash. We couldn't block it all yesterday, not realizing it's a glorified practice scrimmage spring game in the middle of April. So if you do watch a spring game, don't put much stock into it. But I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Do you care? Do you not care? If you don't care, what do you think would make you start caring? And if you do care, what is your level of care? As I said, on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm at about a 2. I watch some, but I don't watch it all. Probably never will. By the fourth quarter, you've got 9th string walk-on guys playing. It's useless. But I will watch some of it, but not just the Clemson game. If there's another team with a spring game on, I'll watch a drive or two, and that's about it. So I watch it because it's football, but I don't watch it all. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I stole a futon once. Then I had to lay low for a few years. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.